I wanted, I was talking to someone the other day, and they were asking me about my first week, when I moved to New York. And I was telling them the story of basically of my first week living in New York and what everything was like. And I thought I would share that with you. So, I moved to New York in September of 1973. And I was going to be attending the American Musical and Dramatic Academy, 18 years old, just out of high school. And I lived in a boarding house for girls. And back in this is what the person found fascinating. It's like, yeah, back in 1973, they had boarding houses for girls. As a matter of fact, the one I lived in was called Sage House. And, but there were like about 3 or 4 others right in the village. I lived in Greenwich Village because my school was in the village. And my school was on Bleecker Street, and it was just about a 10-minute walk across Washington Square Park to my school. Anyway, about in the 90s, at some point in the 90s, I remember my Aunt Janice saying to me, Deb, were you homesick at all? And I said, oh yeah, I'm sure. And she said, really? Like, how long? How long were you homesick? And I said, well, I guess it was about maybe 4 or 5 days. And she was like, oh my God, 4 or 5 days? Are you kidding me? That's not homesick. And I said, well, let me explain. I moved to Sage House. Sage House was a small brownstone. It had 33 rooms. Most of them were double rooms. And it was a 6-story walk up, and I lived on the 6th floor. My room was on the 6th floor. Shared bathrooms, 1 bathroom per floor. You had sink in your room. You had your own sink in your room, but the toilet and showers were all in the down the hall. And but the girls that lived there most of the girls were between my age 18 and 25. The majority of us going to school, attending classes. Some were maybe working and just transferred from somewhere else. And that's where you lived when you first came to New York back then. You lived in boarding houses for girls. So anyway, I remember my first night in New York. The girls had introduced themselves and everything. We had meals there too. We ate breakfast and lunch and dinner. I don't really remember too much with lunch because I was in classes every day. And that was a nice way of meeting people. There was a really nice living room, I remember, on the 2nd floor with a grand piano and a fireplace, and the girls would gather. But anyway, my first night, I remember the girls, early in the afternoon, sometime in the afternoon after my parents had left, knocked on my door and said, we have an extra ticket to a Broadway show for tonight. Somebody had gotten sick. Would you like to buy it? And I'm a theater major. Are you kidding? I mean, I had seen a Broadway show in Philadelphia, but I had never seen a Broadway show on Broadway. So yes, absolutely. So I saw my first Broadway show. It was called Seesaw. And I remember I thought we went uptown to the show and downtown to Chinatown for dinner. And I didn't know where I was, so I thought we went downtown to the show and uptown to Chinatown, so I was really confused. But, my first night in New York. Anyway, once school started, I met a lot of made new friends, new people. Everybody was from out of town. The first year, a lot of the girls lived. Oh, what boarding house do you live? Which boarding house do you live? And most of us lived in boarding houses. There were very few that actually had apartments. That usually happened in your second year, not in your first year. But anyway, all my classes, I think my classes, I started at like 10 in the morning, 10 to 6, if I remember right, was our schedule. And dance, singing, acting, everything. Anyway, that was my first week. And, so it was really a jam-packed full, lot of things, a lot of everything, a new city, new people, new experiences, everything new. So I remember that Friday night, many of us who lived in the Northeast and could take the train home or whatever did. So I took the train home to Philadelphia, and my parents met me at the train. And my father normally on a Friday night would go to the IKIAC, the Italian American Independent Club, with the guys and play cards and stuff. But he stayed home to listen to my stories. They were so excited to hear what my first week in New York was like. And I remember we sat around the kitchen table, and I explained everything from the Broadway show to what it was like at Sage House, and the food and the girls, and my routine, what was becoming my routine to go to school, and the people I was meeting there, and what my classes were like, and what my teachers were like, and just everything. And I remember, we were just so excited, and they were so excited to hear everything about my new life. And, it was before cell phones or anything, so it wasn't like I was speaking to them. I spoke to them once at the beginning of the week and then once at the end of the week to say what train I was coming home on. Long distance calls were expensive in 1973, so I hadn't shared anything with them, and my mom and I were always talking, so it was like, a big thing that we hadn't spoken all week. So it was just a really nice memory of the first week in New York, what it was like to share it all with my parents. And I just, again, thought I'd share it all with you today. Life is made up of small comings and goings, and for everything we take with us, there is something that we leave behind. Until next time.